General Motors has an unofficial rule: no car they produce should outshine the iconic Corvette. But every now and then, this rule gets bent or even broken. In 1987, Buick teamed up with ASE McLaren to create the Grand National Experimental GNX. This black beast had a Garrett turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 engine and cutting-edge engine management. It could match the Ferrari 512 TR in a straight line. It took 3 years for the Corvette to catch up, needing a Lotus-engineered, Mercury Marine-built dual overhead cam small block in the ZR1 to surpass the old Regal finally. This wasn't the first time a GM car threatened the Corvette's supremacy. Back in the late 1960s, there was a car so cleverly designed and rule-breaking that even GM was hesitant to produce it. It featured a powerful engine from the groundbreaking McLaren M8A race car. Its exotic nature meant it wouldn't start in freezing temperatures, much like Ferraris of that era. Its greatest strength was also its downfall. At the end of the day, it was just a Camaro, but a very fast one. This is the story of the ZL1, a car that shouldn't have existed if not for some clever, and let's say wiser negotiators, we may call them so, within General Motors system and a man determined to go racing. The first Camaro ZL1 was born from a loophole in GM's racing regulations. See, back then, GM had this rule that said they couldn't put engines bigger than 400 cubic inches in their smaller cars. But some clever folks figured out that if they ordered the engine as a separate part, they could sneak around this rule. It's 1968. The Apollo 8 crew just became the first to see the far side of the moon. Back on Earth, the Canadian-American Challenge Cup Cam was in full swing. Bruce McLaren was leading the pack with his McLaren M8A race cars powered by Chevrolet big block engines. The Automobile Manufacturers Association had banned corporate-sponsored racing, but that didn't stop Special Gear from getting to smaller teams like McLaren Motor Racing and Chaparral Cars Incorporated. The Can-Am series, racing under FIA Group 7 rules, allowed teams to build unique race cars with no limits on engine size and power, making it a perfect place to test wild engine combinations. Why was this series so important? It was a playground for innovation, where teams could push the limits of what was possible. Vince Piggins, leading Chevrolet's product performance R&D, secretly provided special aluminum block 427 cubic inch V8 to Jim Hall for his Chaparral 2F and Bruce McLaren for his M8A. These aluminum 427S were different from the iron block L88 found in Corvettes. They had more valve lift, a dry sump oiling system, a magnesium oil pan, an intake manifold, and individual throttle bodies, producing 625 horsepower and later nearing 800 horsepower. These engines ruled the 1968 season, powering McLaren to victory and helping Denny Hulme win the title in the McLaren M8A. Then, someone at Chevrolet had a brilliant idea. Why not put these powerful engines into a production road car? That person was Zora Arkus Duntov, the father of the Corvette. Just a month after the final Can-Am race, GM unveiled the specs of their new Can-Am derived aluminum 427 big block for public use, called the ZL1. They removed the dry sump oiling system and added features like a mechanical fuel pump, steel cylinder liners for huge intake valves, circular exhaust ports, and redesigned intake ports, and combustion chambers for 30% better flow than the L88 427. In testing, it made 523 horsepower at the crankshaft with an unrestricted exhaust, challenging Chrysler's 426 Hemi. The ZL1 engine was the most powerful production engine ever made by Chevrolet. Fred Gibb, a seasoned American Hot Rod Association, drag racer, and Chevrolet dealer in La Harpe, Illinois, was determined to have these engines on his lot. He wanted to go drag racing with the new ZL1 engine, but there were two big problems. What were these problems, you ask? To qualify for the American Hot Rod Association, drag racing, 50 units of the engine chassis combo were needed. Plus, GM had a rule against putting engines larger than 400 cubic inches in non-Corvette cars. You remember that, right? How did they get around this? By using a special ordering system called the Central Office Production Order, COPO. The COPO system lets dealers order special fleet vehicles, like police cars with big engines and heavy-duty parts. Fred Gibb used this system to order 50 Camaros with the new aluminum 427 ZL1 engine, new cold air hoods, heavy-duty cooling and brakes, transistor ignition, and a strong 4.10 rear axle. Thus, the COPO 9560 was born. This Camaro, with its 430 horsepower and lightweight build, could compete with the best muscle cars of the era. It could run a quarter mile in just over 10 seconds at 132 miles per hour. But there was a huge catch: the price. The custom engineering costs made it as expensive as a high-end Corvette. Potential buyers preferred the Corvette. GM took back 37 of them, and some were even stolen and stripped during transport. Ever wonder how the muscle car world might have changed if the ZL1 had been cheaper? In Pennsylvania, racing driver Don Yanko created the COPO 9561, almost identical to the 9560, but with a cheaper Iron L72 427 engine. It still had 425 horsepower and could run a quarter mile in the high 11-second range. These sold 3-1 against the ZL1. The ZL1 wasn't about sales, it was about meeting racing requirements. The first ZL1 was prepped for the 1969 American Hot Rod Association Winter Nationals, but struggled against the competition. Finally, in October 1971, the Gibb Harrell Camaro won the AHRA Pro Stock Championship. But sadly, Harrell had died in a car accident a month earlier. Gibb sold his last COPO 9560 in 1972. As emission standards and fuel prices rose, the ZL1 legend faded, with many cars not surviving the era. The ZL1 name went cold for 30 years. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Camaro relied on flashy paint jobs and retro graphics. But GM bet on new engine architecture would bring back the ZL1 legend. Die-hard GM fans know the heartbreak of seeing a beloved icon fall. By 2002, with Camaro production ending, these cars became valuable, often preserved, and rarely raced. The Camaro was dormant from 2003 to 2009, while the streets were ruled by Shelby GT500 and SRT8 Hemi Challengers. Anticipation for a new Camaro built up, and Chevy's marketing team struck gold with the Transformers movie, turning the Camaro into Bumblebee and reigniting public interest. The fifth-generation Camaro launched in 2010, and by 2012, the ZL1 was back, no longer a rare special order, but a regular production option. Made in Ontario, Canada, this new ZL1 didn't have the old 427 cubic inch engine. Instead, it featured a 6.2-liter engine with an Eaton 1.9-liter supercharger from the Cadillac CTS-V. This LSA engine was a beast, with a stronger aluminum block, forged crankshaft, lower compression, and a tough rotating assembly to handle 580 horsepower and 556 pound-force-feet of torque. For the first time, the ZL1 came with advanced technology like magnetic ride control suspension, 6-piston brakes, and a performance traction management system from the Corvette ZR1. It could lap the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 7 minutes and 41 seconds, just 1 second slower than a Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera. From 2012 to 2015, GM produced over 14,000 ZL1s, far more than the original 69 units of 1969. In 2017, the ZL1 evolved again, this time on a lighter, more agile chassis. The new ZL1 had GM's Gen 5 engine, a 6.2-liter supercharged V8 producing 650 horsepower and 650 pound-force-foot of torque with either a 10-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual. This ZL1 was a track monster, with a 7-minute and 16-second lap time, matching a Porsche 911 Turbo S. The ZL1 hit its peak with the Garage 56 Le Mans concept car, a National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing model adapted for endurance racing. Despite its impressive record, the Camaro's journey ended on December 14, 2023, when the last model rolled off the line. The Camaro's strengths, affordability, and performance couldn't save it from corporate decisions. The Corvette, being more iconic and profitable, remained GM's favorite. Just like Fred Gibb took a chance on the Camaro in 1968, the Camaro story shows the power of risk-taking and innovation. Even though it often played second fiddle to the Corvette, the Camaro proved it could stand on its own. While the Camaro may be in hibernation now, its legacy as the Corvette's rebellious sibling lives on. From a racing rebel to a movie star, Camaro's story is full of twists and turns. What's your favorite Camaro moment? Share your thoughts below. Do you think the Camaro will make a comeback someday? And if yes, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more exciting content. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out on legendary car stories like this one.